Hey, Mike.
Hey, Nick. Welcome to my home.
This is a beautiful house.
Thank you. Yeah, I built it over 30 years ago, 1989 actually. So coming up on 30 years. One log at a time we built it.
Wow. And this is the hops field over here?
That's right.
Okay, can we take a tour?
Sure, let's go.
All right, great. So how did this all start?
Wow. I was teaching high school back in 2001. And the principal of the high school had a little beer club. His name was Darryl.
Wow.
And we used to get together at his house once a month on Fridays and bring our home brews over there, kind of like a poker club, but it was about beer instead of poker.
Oh, okay.
We'd taste each other's brews, and next month we'd come back and everybody would have something different. So early on I had a lot of success with my home brewing, and it just developed into more of a passion than a hobby over the years.
So when it came to growing your own hops, when did that start?
Well, about the same time that we were doing the beer club, I purchased some rhizomes from a company out west, planted them in the backyard, and my hop won Best in Show at the Dutchess County Fair that year.
Wow.
So I knew I was onto something, and hops were growing good, and that was a great experience. So I knew we could grow hops. The beer hobby was, let's use our own hops in our beer.
When it came to creating your own hops field, how was that? What was the process? And
well, we went to a beer fest in 2013 in the fall, and it was called Hoptober, and it was at Eastern View Farms in Dutchess County. I saw a working hop farm for the first time. It was about 3 or 4 acres, and I said to my wife Alva, I said, look, we could do this. This is our ticket to keeping this property, making it work for us in the future, is by growing hops. Well, I already know I can grow hops. We've got an award-winning hop vine in the backyard, so let's try to do it on a bigger scale. And she said, well, I think you're kind of nuts, but of all your nutty ideas, I think this one might even work.
so all of this became a brewery. Eventually, this all was incorporated.
Yeah, well, you know, the expense of growing 3 acres of hops, it probably preempts us from making a living at it, because we're not big enough to have enough product to support what it takes to grow 3 acres. If we had 10 or 15 acres, we would probably be profitable enough. But so the next logical step was to not only sell our hops to Roscoe Brewing, but to use our hops ourselves in our own brewery. And now that way, the hop yard and the brewery support each other.
Okay.
So, you know, we have, our slogan is farm to glass.
Farm to glass.
Local hops, local grains. So that's our little niche, and that, I think, is what makes our brewery so unique, is that everything is grown right here in Orange County.
All right.
Local as you can get.
Sounds good to me. Can we take a trip over to the brewery?
Sure, I'd love to show you.
Okay, great. All right. All right, so this is the brewery.
Yep. Welcome to the brewery at Orange County Hops. And the first thing I'm going to do is give you a sample of our handcrafted beer.
Sounds great. So I'm looking around right now, and I just see a ton of details that I would definitely like to pick at your mind about.
Sure.
I mean, this right here.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Everything that you see in this place is representative of my vision of an old farmhouse. And everything comes from our farm or is locally repurposed from Walden. all the decorations that you see are carvings that I've carved over the years with a chainsaw.
Right.
These little figurines or whatever, the pelican, the Papa Louie, the jackass, the mermaid, the Amazon Ashley. All of those have a purpose for me. They all represent the alligator. They all represent a beer style that I've brewed. I use those carvings to name my beers. So everything here is crafted. This is kind of like my man cave, my vision of my creative space, and anything creative that I've been involved with over the years it is finally coming together, including brewing beer and performing on stage. You know, I've been a performer as a musician
Right.
for over 30, 40 years now.
So you're more or less a jack of all trades.
I just
You like music, you like to create, you like to build.
Let's just say that I'm passionate about creativity.
Right.
Yeah, and whether that's being creative in the arts or brewing beer or carving or building a house or whatever that manifests itself as, that's who I am. And I think that's what this place and this space represents. I'm a passionate jazz musician, a graduate of Berklee College of Music, and way back in the 80s, and been a jazz performer ever since the early 80s. And recently I got my doctorate in music from Boston University in the field of jazz. I did a study on a great tenor saxophone player named Joe Lovano.
Thank you. For those of you who just joined us, thank you for being here.
When it comes to running a brewery, what exactly does it take? Because I know you referred to this originally as kind of a man cave, so I know it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But running a brewery and intermingling with the community and the area, do you have a lot of locals that come? Is it
Absolutely. It's really a friends and family type venture.
Right.
It's all about that.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of love goes into this.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We're making our red ale. So we mix these different roasts together and we come up with a recipe. We put them in varying amounts into the crusher and we crush the kernels so that we get more surface area. We crack actually the grain so we get more surface area to release the starches contained in that grain. And that happens after we crush it, we put it into the mash tun. The mash is nothing more than a big kettle which we add hot water to the crushed grains, and that hot water converts or extracts the starches out of the grain. Once we let that steep, like making a tea, for about an hour, then we transfer that into the boil kettle, and the extraction process at that point halts. Mash is ready to be transferred. After 60 minutes in the mash tun. When we reach a certain temperature, it stops extracting and stops changing the flavor profile, which is what we want. We want to lock in our profile of what we desire to get our mash at a certain temperature. And then we put it into the boil kettle. From there, we let we heat the mash to a boil, which is now called wort, and that is basically unfermented beer. That starch that we just extracted from the grain through the process of boiling now becomes sugar, and those sugars at the end of the boil will be transferred to the fermentation tanks. We have 4 of them here, and that's where we'll add our yeast. Also during the boil, we add our hops to provide a certain level of bittering, and depending upon the variety of hops that we use or the strength of the hop, each hop has a certain flavor characteristic or an aroma characteristic that imparts different things to different beers. So we have to be careful how long we boil each hop and how much hop we use to attain the balance for the style we're making. Obviously, an IPA, which is a hoppy type beer, uses more hops and has a stronger hop aroma and flavor than a porter or a strong red ale like we're making today.
Wow, that smells delicious.
After about 2 weeks, we crash our beer, which means we chill it. So we filter out all of the particles that were floating in there during fermentation. And we dry hop if we're going to do that. We carbonate it in the fermentation tank. Then we transfer it to our small tanks. And we have declared beer, which we then store in our cooler, ready for the customers to drink.
I can definitely taste the quality and the freshness in this. Some of the beers that you buy in stores can sometimes feel like they've gotten a little stale over time, but this, you can tell that it was brewed very, very recently.
Very aromatic, like you can tell it was dry hop very recently, which is cool. And the stout was really excellent too. It's a coffee stout, so it's a little bit sweet, but it's not overbearing, which is nice.
Each one has like their own, almost has like their own character, and I definitely think that they're absolutely able to be in the market to be like a store-wide beer. Personally, my favorite has to be probably the Alligator IPA. I'm definitely a hophead myself. I can absolutely taste how fresh it is. Knowing that the hops are, 2 minutes down the street, you can definitely taste the fact that it's right here. It's, it was brewed right here and it's poured right here and straight to our glasses. You could tell it's absolutely fresh.
I really don't know a lot about beer, but as you can tell by my physique, I do drink a lot of beer. This is probably one of the better beers I've had. I do enjoy drinking a lot of local beers though, so.
Seeing where the hops were grown is awesome, just to see exactly where it comes from. It literally comes right down the road, and to have them come here and make something so great is just pretty cool.
Well, it was definitely a pleasure to have this experience, to see the hops field.
Pleasure having you here, Nick.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, hope to see you around. Come back and share some more stories with
I
us.
definitely will. All right, Mike.
Thanks, Nick.